A warm welcome to all our viewers at Cheating Tales Lab. We're grateful you chose to spend time with us today. Quick question, where are you tuning in from? Big city? Small town? Share with us below. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundations of Sand. Dominic Sawyer built things to last. From the skyscrapers that bore his company's name to the fortress-like mansion overlooking Lake Michigan, permanence was his signature. At 45, he had constructed an empire with the calloused hands that still remembered the feel of a carpenter's hammer, his father's trade before the bottle claimed him. Brick by brick, he would tell his project managers, there are no shortcuts to anything worth having. The irony wasn't lost on him that his marriage had become the one foundation he'd neglected to maintain. 15 years with Vanessa had slowly eroded from passionate partnership to cordial coexistence. She was still breathtaking at 38. The same golden-haired beauty who'd once worked as his administrative assistant before capturing both his attention and his guarded heart. Their relationship had been unexpected. Dominic, burned by a previous marriage that ended when his college sweetheart Allison left him for his former business partner, had sworn off serious relationships. But Vanessa's warmth had slowly melted his defenses. You can't punish every woman for what one did to you, she told him during their courtship. He regretted now how those words had persuaded him to trust again. Their anniversary was approaching, 15 years that felt increasingly hollow. The distance between them had grown in recent months. Vanessa's unexplained absences, the late nights, the sudden interest in fitness with a new personal trainer. The signs were there, but Dominic's demanding work schedule made it easy to ignore them. That morning, he had left their bed at dawn as usual, padding quietly to his home office while Vanessa slept off whatever had kept her out until midnight. A text notification lit up his phone. Francis Larson, his head of security. Need to talk. Found something during routine sweep. In person only. Francis had been with Dominic since the beginning, an ex-military man with unwavering loyalty. For him to send such a cryptic message meant trouble. 3 hours later, Francis sat across from Dominic in his downtown office, sliding a manila folder across the mahogany desk. Phone sweep picked up some unusual activity. Following protocol, we investigated further. Francis's face remained professionally neutral. I'm sorry, boss. Inside the folder were printouts of text messages between Vanessa and someone saved in her phone as PT. Miss you already. Tomorrow can't come soon enough. Same hotel. I'll bring the champagne. You bring that little black thing I like. He's leaving for Seattle on Thursday. 3 whole days. The texts continued, each one a knife twisting deeper. Attached were surveillance photos showing Vanessa entering the Grand Riverside Hotel, followed 30 minutes later by a man Dominic recognized immediately. Preston Taylor, not just her personal trainer, but also the architectural consultant Dominic had personally hired for his company's new headquarters project. There's more, Francis said quietly. Financial records show she's been moving money from your joint accounts into a private one. Small amounts, but it adds up. Nearly $200,000 over the past year. Dominic's face betrayed nothing as he closed the folder. Years of high-stakes negotiations had perfected his poker face. Inside, something cold and calculating was awakening. Something he hadn't felt since clawing his way up from nothing. Thank you, Francis. Continue monitoring, but tell no one. What's your plan, boss? Dominic looked out at the Chicago skyline he had helped reshape. You know, my father taught me something before he drank himself to death. He said, a man who seeks revenge should dig 2 graves. I always thought that meant revenge was self-destructive. A small, dangerous smile appeared. Now I realize he simply meant to be thorough. That evening, Dominic returned home earlier than usual. Vanessa was in the kitchen, looking surprised to see him. You're home early, she said, kissing his cheek. The scent of an unfamiliar cologne lingered faintly on her skin. Thought I'd surprise you. He smiled, playing the role of oblivious husband perfectly. Anniversary's coming up. 15 years deserves something special, don't you think? Absolutely. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I've actually been planning something myself. Have you now? Dominic poured himself a bourbon. Can't wait. His phone rang. Vanessa's mother, Eleanor. Dominic. Just calling to confirm you received the anniversary present I sent over yesterday. Present? I haven't seen anything, he replied, watching his wife's expression carefully. It was delivered to your office. A special bottle of that bourbon you like. Thought you and Vanessa might enjoy it together. After ending the call, Dominic noticed how Vanessa suddenly became engrossed in checking her phone. Your mother sent us something. Did you know about that? Oh, no, she didn't mention it. Vanessa replied too quickly. Probably wanted to surprise us both. Dominic nodded, mentally adding Eleanor to the growing list of people who had underestimated him. Something was brewing, and for the first time in months, he felt fully awake. I'm thinking of canceling my Seattle trip next week, he said casually. Some things require my personal attention here. The flash of panic in Vanessa's eyes was brief, but unmistakable. But that's your big meeting with the international investors, she said. You've been preparing for months. Some things are more important than business. He raised his glass to her, like making sure what's mine stays mine. The double meaning hung in the air between them. Game on. Chapter 2. The Dinner. 3 days before their anniversary, Dominic received a lavish gift basket at his office. It contained an expensive bottle of bourbon, artisanal cheeses, and a note, for my favorite son-in-law. The perfect pairing for the special anniversary dinner I've prepared. It's in your home refrigerator. With love, Eleanor. Dominic studied the bourbon bottle carefully. The seal appeared intact, but something fell off. He placed it in his desk drawer without opening it. That evening, he called his old friend Dr. Maxwell Richter, who ran one of the most advanced medical laboratories in Chicago. Max, I need a favor, Dominic said. Discretion is essential. For you? Name it. I need a bourbon bottle and its contents analyzed, quickly and quietly. Expecting to find something specific? Max asked. Let's say I'm suddenly concerned about food safety, Dominic replied dryly. The next morning, Dominic received a text from Max. Call me immediately. Private line only. The bourbon contained Rohypnol, Dom, Max said without preamble when Dominic called. Not enough to kill you, but enough to put you out for hours. Mixed with alcohol, it could be dangerous, even fatal at your weight if you had more than 2 glasses. And the food. Nothing in the cheese, but we should test the dinner your mother-in-law prepared. By evening, the results were in. The anniversary dinner, an elaborate beef Wellington with truffle sauce, contained a concentrated extract from foxglove plants, containing cardiac glycosides that could trigger heart failure. This is an amateur hour, Max warned. This is a calculated dose. Someone wants you very sick or dead, while maintaining plausible deniability. Dominic sat in his office late into the night, the pieces falling into place. The canceled Seattle trip would have left him home alone with the poisoned meal and drugged bourbon. Heart attack symptoms would appear natural for a hard-driving businessman in his 40s. By the time help arrived, if it was called at all, it would be too late. On the night before their anniversary, Dominic arrived home to find Vanessa dressed elegantly, candles lit throughout their dining room. I thought we'd celebrate early, she smiled. Mother sent over something special. She's quite the gourmet cook now. How thoughtful, Dominic matched her smile. But I had a big lunch. Mind if I just have a drink for now? Her eyes flickered to the bourbon he'd brought home. Let's open that special bottle Mother sent. Already did, he lied smoothly. Shared it with some clients. Excellent stuff. Disappointment flashed across her face before she recovered. Well, the dinner will keep until tomorrow. I'll put it away. No need, Dominic said, walking to the refrigerator. I'm curious what your mother prepared. He took out the elegant container, pretending to examine it with interest. Looks delicious. Beef Wellington? My favorite. Yes, she remembered. Vanessa's tone was casual, but her knuckles were white around her wine glass. You know, I've been thinking about family lately, Dominic said conversationally, returning the container to the refrigerator. Trust. Loyalty. The things that matter. Oh, Vanessa took another sip of wine. I had an interesting call today from Preston Taylor, Dominic continued, watching her face pale. He wanted to discuss some structural issues he's discovered. The wine glass froze halfway to her lips. What did he say? That we should talk urgently. In person. Dominic shrugged. I'm meeting him tomorrow. Said it couldn't wait. Vanessa excused herself moments later to make a phone call. Through the sophisticated home security system Francis had installed, Dominic listened as she frantically called Preston from the guest bathroom. He knows something? No, I'm not sure what. The dinner's still in the refrigerator. Yes, Mother's very sure it would work. Tomorrow might be too late. After she returned, Dominic played the role of distracted husband, mentioning casually that he had a morning meeting and would grab breakfast on the way. Don't wait up, he said, kissing her cheek before retreating to his home office. Once alone, he made 2 calls. First to Francis, instructing him to monitor all of Vanessa's communications and movements. The second to his lawyer, Raymond Wells. I need everything ready within 2 weeks, Dominic told him. The documents we discussed, the offshore arrangements, all of it. That's accelerating things considerably, Raymond cautioned. Sometimes the foundation crumbles faster than expected, Dominic replied. Be ready. The next morning, their actual anniversary, Dominic left before Vanessa woke. Instead of going to the office, he drove to a hotel and checked in under an alias Francis had prepared. From there, he monitored the security feed on his tablet. At noon, Vanessa called his office, only to be told by his assistant that he was in meetings all day. At 3 p.m., she called Preston, their conversation captured by the spyware Francis had installed on her phone. He's still planning to meet you? She asked anxiously. No, he canceled. Said something came up. This isn't good, Preston. What if he suspects? Relax. Even if he knows about us, he doesn't know about the rest. At 7 p.m., Dominic's phone rang. Eleanor Hayes, his mother-in-law. Happy anniversary, Dominic. Did you enjoy the dinner I prepared? Actually, I haven't had a chance to try it yet, he answered smoothly. Been swamped with work. Oh, but Vanessa said you were planning a special evening at home tonight. Change of plans. Business emergency. There was a pause. Well, don't wait too long. That dish is best enjoyed fresh. I'll keep that in mind. 3 hours later, Eleanor called again, this time her voice tense. Did you eat the dinner? Dominic laughed casually. Your daughter came home early and ate it all. The next thing I heard was her screaming through the phone. The silence on the other end was deafening. What did you say? Eleanor's voice was barely a whisper. Just kidding, Dominic replied coldly. Neither of us touched it, but I had it analyzed by a lab. Interesting choice of ingredients, Eleanor. Digitalis can be tricky to dose correctly. He ended the call, watching through the security feed as Vanessa received a panic call from her mother. 20 minutes later, she was hurriedly packing a suitcase when Francis and 2 police officers entered the house. From his hotel room, Dominic watched the security footage as they arrested his wife for attempted murder. Phase 1 of his plan was complete, but this was just the beginning. Preston Taylor and Eleanor Hayes would soon learn that Dominic Sawyer's revenge, like his buildings, was methodically constructed, built to destroy completely and without mercy. Chapter 3. The Players. Detective Nolan Russo sat across from Dominic in an austere interview room at the Chicago Police Department. Unlike most witnesses, Dominic had arrived without a lawyer, a power move that wasn't lost on the veteran detective. So you're telling me you suspected your wife was trying to poison you, Russo said skeptically. But instead of coming to us, you had the food tested privately? I'm a cautious man, detective. I needed to be certain before making such an accusation. Dominic's composure was impenetrable. Once I had proof, I contacted you immediately. Through your head of security, who conveniently had officers ready to make the arrest. Russo leaned forward. Mr. Sawyer, most men who discover their wives are planning to kill them show some emotion. You look like you're discussing a business merger. Would you prefer I throw chairs? Dominic raised an eyebrow. I process betrayal differently. And the affair with Preston Taylor? When did you discover that? Recently. But that was secondary to the attempted murder. Russo shuffled through his notes. Your mother-in-law is also implicated. She prepared the poison meal. So it seems. Yet you didn't warn her when you suspected the food was poisoned. You let her believe your wife had eaten it. A cold smile touched Dominic's lips. A momentary lapse in judgment. After the interview, Dominic stood outside the station, surveying the media vans already assembling. The story had everything: wealth, betrayal, attempted murder, infidelity. His phone buzzed with a text from Raymond Wells. Damage control protocol initiated. Press statement ready for your approval. Another message followed from Francis. PT attempting to flee. Intercept in progress. Preston Taylor had been caught trying to board a flight to Mexico with cash and fake identification. The architect who had slept with Dominic's wife while accepting his money was now facing conspiracy charges as investigators uncovered text messages discussing the plan and afterward. Eleanor Hayes, meanwhile, was claiming she had no knowledge of any poison, that she had merely prepared the meal at her daughter's request. but a search of her residence had uncovered gardening books with pages marked on poisonous plants and browser searches on untraceable poisons and heart attack symptoms. As Dominic drove home, he received a call from a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Sawyer, this is Renee Hayes, Vanessa's younger sister, whom he'd met only a handful of times. I need to speak with you urgently." They met at a quiet coffee shop away from the media frenzy. Renee, 34 and notably different from her sister with dark hair and a serious demeanor, looked exhausted. "First, I had no knowledge of what they were planning," she began, hands wrapped tightly around her coffee mug. "But I knew about the affair." "Why tell me this now?" Dominic asked. "Because there's more you should know." She hesitated. "This wasn't just about the affair or your money. There's something bigger." Renee explained that Preston Taylor wasn't just Vanessa's lover. He was connected to Boyd Mercer, Dominic's former business partner, and the man who had stolen his first wife. "They've been planning this for years," Renee said. "Vanessa was recruited. She approached you deliberately." The revelation hit Dominic like a physical blow. 15 years of his life. A calculated operation orchestrated by a man he'd thought long gone from his life. "Boyd went bankrupt 5 years ago," Renee continued. "He blamed you for blacklisting him in the industry. This was his revenge, taking everything from you, including your life." "How do you know all this?" "Vanessa told me pieces over the years. She was proud of playing the long game." Renee looked away. "I should have said something sooner, but she's your sister," Dominic finished. "That doesn't excuse my silence." Dominic studied her, searching for deception and finding only guilt. "Why come forward now? Murder crosses a line I never thought they'd approach." She pushed a USB drive across the table. "Emails, recordings, documents, everything I could gather. There's a larger network involved, including some of your current executives." After Renee left, Dominic sat alone, absorbing the enormity of the betrayal. His phone buzzed again. Leo Winters, his oldest friend and the CFO of his company. "Dom, have you seen the news?" "Christ, man, are you okay?" "I need to see you," Dominic replied. "But not at the office. The lake house. Tomorrow morning." "What's going on beyond what's in the press?" "The foundation is compromised, Leo. We need to rebuild from the ground up." The next day, Dominic and Leo sat on the deck of his secluded lake house, reviewing the contents of Renee's USB drive. Leo's face grew increasingly grim as they uncovered the extent of the conspiracy. Board members who had been compromised, projects that had been subtly sabotaged, and a complex plan to trigger the collapse of Dominic's empire once he was dead. "Boyd's been playing a longer game than I gave him credit for," Dominic said finally. "What's your move?" Leo asked. They had been friends since college, before either had a dollar to their name. Dominic gazed out at the lake, his expression resolute. "They wanted to destroy everything I've built. Instead, I'm going to take everything from them. Not just freedom or money, everything. The legal system will handle Vanessa and her mother," Leo pointed out. "The legal system is just one battlefield," Dominic replied. "I didn't get where I am by limiting my options." That evening, as the sun set over the lake, Dominic made 3 more calls. The first to Mia Delgado, a private investigator known for her ruthlessness. "I need everything on Boyd Mercer, Preston Taylor, and these 6 executives," he instructed. "No limitations on methods. Double your usual fee." The second call was to Cameron, his 25-year-old son from his first marriage, who had distanced himself after believing Dominic had driven his mother away. "There are things you need to know," Dominic told him. "About your mother, about Boyd. Things I should have told you years ago." The final call was to Francis. "Implement protocol scorched earth," he ordered. "Every contingency we discussed. It's time." As night fell, Dominic stood on the deck, looking at the same stars that had witnessed his rise from nothing. The boy who had watched his father destroy himself with alcohol and self-pity had sworn 2 things: to never depend on anyone, and to never show mercy to those who betrayed him. He had broken the first rule by trusting Vanessa. He would not break the second. Chapter 4. The Architect. Preston Taylor paced his cell, the reality of his situation finally sinking in. The high-priced attorney Boyd had promised hadn't materialized. Instead, a public defender had informed him that the evidence against him was substantial. Text messages discussing the aftermath of Dominic's death, his flight attempt, and $50,000 in cash with a fake passport. "Mr. Taylor?" A guard appeared. "Your attorney is here." Hope surged until he saw an unfamiliar woman enter, sharp-featured with calculating eyes. "I'm not your regular public defender," she said once they were alone. "My name is Andrea Levine. I've been retained anonymously to represent you." "By whom?" Preston asked suspiciously. "That's confidential. What matters is that I can help you, if you're willing to help yourself." She laid out the situation clinically. Preston faced up to 20 years for conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud for his involvement in embezzling company funds, and various other charges. However, she had a deal to offer. "My client is prepared to provide evidence that you were manipulated by Vanessa and Eleanor Hayes. In exchange, you'll testify against them and provide information about other parties involved." "What other parties?" Preston asked cautiously. "Boyd Mercer, for one," Andrea replied, watching his reaction. "We know he orchestrated this. His fingerprints are all over it, just not literally." Preston felt the walls closing in. "I want immunity. You won't get it. But I can get your sentence reduced to 5 years, possibly less with good behavior." 5 years? Preston exploded. "For what? I didn't poison anyone." "No, you just slept with his wife while planning to profit from his death," Andrea countered coldly. "Consider your options carefully, Mr. Taylor. This offer expires when I walk out that door." Meanwhile, across town, Dominic sat across from his son Cameron in an upscale restaurant's private dining room. The young man had his father's build, but his mother's features, a constant reminder of what Dominic had lost years ago. "Why now?" Cameron asked, the distance of years evident in his guarded posture. "You've barely called since I graduated." "Because you deserve the truth," Dominic replied, sliding a folder across the table. "About your mother, about Boyd, about why I let you believe certain things." Cameron reluctantly opened the folder, his expression shifting from skepticism to shock as he reviewed the contents. Bank statements, emails, surveillance photos from years earlier showing his mother with Boyd long before the supposed affair was discovered. She was embezzling from the company for nearly 2 years before she left, Dominic explained quietly. "Boyd wasn't just my business partner who stole my wife. They were working together from the beginning." "Why didn't you tell me? You let me believe you drove her away with your work obsession. I blamed you for the divorce. You were 16. You adored your mother. Would knowing she was a thief and a liar have made your life better?" Dominic's voice remained even. "I chose to be the villain if it meant protecting you from the truth." Cameron stood abruptly. "I need some air." He walked out, leaving Dominic alone with the untouched evidence. His phone buzzed, a text from Mia Delgado. "Found the connection. BM is on the board of Meridian Capital. They're your anonymous investors for the Seattle project." The pieces were falling into place. Boyd had orchestrated a complex revenge. Get Dominic to commit to the massive Seattle development. Install Preston as the architect to compromise the project. Ensure Vanessa eliminated Dominic. Then have Meridian Capital pull funding, triggering a catastrophic collapse of Dominic's over-leveraged company. Dominic's phone rang again. "Francis." "Sir, we have movement. Boyd Mercer just booked a flight to Chicago for tomorrow." "Perfect timing," Dominic replied. "Make sure our friend at TSA flags him for the enhanced security experience." Later that evening, Andrea Levine called to confirm that Preston had accepted the deal. In exchange for testimony against Vanessa, Eleanor, and Boyd, he would receive a reduced sentence and placement in a minimum security facility. "He also confirmed our suspicions about the Seattle project," Andrea added. "The architectural plans Preston submitted have critical flaws that wouldn't be apparent until construction was well underway. The remediation costs would have bankrupted you." "And Vanessa?" "Maintaining her innocence. Claims she knew nothing about the poison, that her mother acted alone." Dominic smiled coldly. "Send her attorney the recordings from our home security system. The ones where she discusses the plan with her mother and Preston. Let's see how she pivots." As midnight approached, Dominic received an unexpected visitor at the lake house. "Cameron." "I talked to Mom," he said, stepping inside. "Confronted her with what you showed me. And she didn't deny it. Said you deserved it for being controlling." Cameron's expression hardened. 15 years of letting me blame you. And she couldn't even take responsibility when confronted with proof." Dominic poured 2 drinks. "I'm sorry, son." "No, I'm sorry," Cameron replied, accepting the glass. "I should have trusted you. Should have at least heard your side." "We can't change the past," Dominic said. "But we can shape what happens next." Cameron studied his father. What exactly are you planning? Justice, Dominic answered simply. Would you like to help? The next morning, Boyd Mercer arrived at Chicago O'Hare, unaware that his every movement was being monitored. As planned, he was detained for random additional screening, his luggage thoroughly searched, his electronics confiscated for security concerns. By the time he reached his hotel, he was furious, calling his attorney to complain about the treatment. The call was intercepted by Francis's team. It's deliberate harassment, Boyd fumed. Sawyer's behind this. We need to accelerate the timeline. The timeline is already compromised, his attorney warned. Preston has flipped. He's giving them everything. What? That's spineless. Boyd stopped himself. How bad? Bad enough that I'm advising you to return to New York immediately. We need to implement damage control. Too late. Boyd realized his hotel room door hadn't fully closed. It swung open to reveal Dominic Sawyer. Hello, Boyd, Dominic said pleasantly. It's been, 20 years? You can't be here, Boyd said, reaching for his phone. Actually, I can. I own this hotel. Dominic sat down uninvited. Let's catch up, shall we? You sleep with my first wife, steal half my company, spend 2 decades plotting my demise, recruit my second wife as your accomplice, and plan to destroy everything I've built. Did I miss anything? You've lost your mind, Boyd blustered. I'm calling security. By all means, Dominic gestured to the phone. Though they might find it odd that you're carrying $15,000 in cash and a burner phone with messages to a known fugitive. The TSA missed those in your laptop bag, but then they were instructed to focus on your checked luggage. Boyd sank into a chair. What do you want? To give you a choice, Dominic replied calmly. Option 1. You're arrested within the hour as investigators discover your connection to the murder plot. Your assets are frozen during the investigation. Your reputation is destroyed. Meridian Capital distances themselves to avoid the scandal. You lose everything. And option 2? Boyd asked, his composure cracking. You sign these papers. Dominic placed a document folder on the table. Transferring your Meridian shares to a holding company I control. You announce your retirement due to health concerns. You relocate permanently to your house in the Cayman Islands. You never contact anyone connected to me again. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you more than you offered me, Dominic corrected. You plan to leave me dead. I'm letting you walk away with your life and freedom, if not your dignity. Boyd stared at the documents, then at his former partner. You've changed, Dom. No. Dominic stood to leave. I've remembered who I am. You have 1 hour to decide. Outside the hotel, Leo was waiting in the car. Did he take the bait? He will, Dominic replied confidently. Self-preservation is Boyd's defining trait. And if he doesn't sign? Dominic's expression hardened. Then we move to Plan B. And Boyd discovers what it really means to lose everything. Chapter 5. The Mother. Eleanor Hayes sat rigidly in the visitation room of the Cook County Jail, her designer outfit replaced by an orange jumpsuit that drained the color from her already pale face. Across from her sat Dominic, impeccably dressed and unnervingly calm. You have some nerve showing up here, Eleanor hissed, glancing nervously at the guard standing by the door. I thought we should chat, mother-in-law to son-in-law, Dominic replied pleasantly. Clear the air about the anniversary dinner you prepared with such loving care. I don't know what Vanessa told you, but I had no idea. Let's not waste time with lies, Dominic cut her off, still smiling. The police found digitalis plants growing in your garden. Your internet search history includes untraceable poisons and heart attack symptoms. And most damning, there's a recording of you and Vanessa discussing the dosage. Eleanor's face hardened. Then why are you here? To gloat. I'm here to negotiate. Dominic leaned forward. You're facing attempted murder charges with compelling evidence. At your age, that's essentially a life sentence. What could you possibly offer me? A way out, Dominic replied. Your testimony against Boyd Mercer and his associates in exchange for a plea deal. Reduced charges, minimum security facility, possibility of parole in 7 years. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Why would you help me after what I did? I'm not helping you. I'm using you. Dominic's smile never wavered. Boyd has more powerful friends than you do. Your testimony helps ensure he doesn't escape justice. And Vanessa? My testimony would implicate my own daughter. She's already implicated herself, Dominic shrugged. The choice is yours, Eleanor. Die in prison, or have a chance at freedom while you still have some life left. After leaving the jail, Dominic met with District Attorney Maria Robertson, a sharp-minded prosecutor with political ambitions. Eleanor took the deal. Dominic informed her. Her attorney will contact your office this afternoon. You've gift-wrapped this case, Robertson observed. 3 conspirators turning on each other, meticulous evidence, high-profile defendants. If I didn't know better, I'd think you orchestrated the whole thing. Just a concerned citizen helping justice prevail, Dominic replied smoothly. And Boyd Mercer? You really think we can tie him directly to the murder plot? I think once Eleanor and Preston start talking, you'll find connections you didn't expect. Dominic checked his watch. Speaking of unexpected connections, there's something else you should know. He slid a folder across the desk. Documentation showing suspicious financial transactions between Judge Thomas Walton, who was assigned to Vanessa's case, and companies linked to Boyd Mercer. Judge Walton has been receiving quarterly consulting fees from a Cayman shell company that traces back to Boyd, Dominic explained. I thought you should be aware of this potential conflict of interest. Robertson exhaled slowly. This case just keeps expanding. Any other bombshells I should prepare for, Mr. Sawyer? Life is full of surprises, Ms. Robertson. Dominic stood to leave. I've learned that the hard way. That evening, Cameron joined his father for dinner at the lake house, bringing news from his meeting with the board members Dominic suspected were compromised. They're nervous, Cameron reported. After Boyd transferred his Meridian shares and announced his health issues, they're scrambling to distance themselves. Davis and Wheeler have already tendered their resignations. And the others? Waiting to see which way the wind blows. Cameron took a sip of his drink. The Seattle project is officially on hold pending a full review of the architectural plans. The investors are standing firm thanks to the amendments you made to the agreement last month. Dominic nodded, pleased that his foresight was paying off. He had suspected something was amiss with the Seattle project and had quietly inserted clauses that prevented investors from withdrawing without significant penalties. There's something else, Cameron added hesitantly. Mom called me again. She wants to meet. Says she has information about Boyd's other accomplices that could help your case. And you believe her? Not for a second, Cameron replied grimly. But I thought we could use it. Dominic studied his son with newfound respect. The boy who had once blamed him for the family's collapse had become a man capable of the same strategic thinking Dominic prided himself on. Set up the meeting, Dominic decided. But on our terms. And wear a wire. The next day brought another development, Renee Hayes requesting another meeting. They met at the same coffee shop, Renee looking even more exhausted than before. I received a package from Vanessa, she began without preamble. Instructions to retrieve something from a storage unit if anything happened to her. And you went? Yes. She placed a small external hard drive on the table. It's all here, everything about Boyd's organization, his partners, the long game they've been playing. Not just against you, but others. You're not the first person they've targeted this way. Dominic picked up the drive. Why give this to me instead of the authorities? Because some of the people implicated have badges, Renee replied quietly. And because I know you'll make sure they pay. All of them. Including your sister and mother? Renee's eyes hardened. Especially them. Family doesn't try to murder family. As Renee left, Dominic received a call from Leo. Boyd signed the papers and booked a flight to Grand Cayman. He leaves tomorrow morning. Make sure he gets there safely, Dominic instructed. We need him to feel secure. And then we complete his education on the subject of loss. Later that night, Dominic reviewed the contents of Vanessa's hard drive with Mia Delgado. The information was more extensive than he'd anticipated. A criminal enterprise spanning decades, with Boyd at the center of a web that included judges, police officials, business leaders, and even a state senator. This is explosive, Mia whistled. The feds would have a field day with this. And that's exactly where it's going, Dominic confirmed. But carefully, selectively. Some of this information has more value held back than revealed. Insurance, Mia nodded understanding. Precisely. Dominic closed the laptop. Now, about Cameron's meeting with Allison tomorrow. I want every precaution in place. Already arranged, Mia assured him. If she tries anything, we'll know before she does. As midnight approached, Dominic stood on his balcony overlooking the city lights. Phase 2 of his plan was proceeding perfectly. The players were positioning themselves exactly as he'd anticipated, each betrayer unwittingly contributing to their own downfall. His phone buzzed with a text from Francis. Judge Walton has recused himself from the case. New judge assigned, Catherine Mills. Dominic smiled. Judge Mills was known for her absolute intolerance of corruption and her maximum sentencing for crimes involving breach of trust. Another piece falling perfectly into place. Tomorrow, Cameron would meet with Allison, extracting whatever information she was willing to trade in her desperate attempt to avoid being dragged down with Boyd. And then, as Boyd settled into his false sense of security in the Caymans, the final phase would begin. Brick by brick, Dominic murmured to himself. There are no shortcuts to proper revenge. Chapter 6. The Sun. Cameron Sawyer sat across from his mother at an upscale restaurant in downtown Chicago, studying the woman who had abandoned him a decade earlier. Allison Mercer, formerly Sawyer, still maintained her beauty through rigorous cosmetic intervention, but there was a brittle quality to her now, the hardness of someone who had sacrificed too much for appearance's sake. You look well, she offered, clearly uncomfortable under his scrutiny. So much like your father. Why the sudden interest in family reunions? Cameron asked coldly. It's been 3 years since you even bothered to call on my birthday. Things are complicated, Cameron. You're old enough now to understand that. I understand plenty, he replied. Like how you and Boyd embezzled from Dad's company before running off together. How you've been helping orchestrate attacks on his business for years. How you were complicit in a murder plot. Allison's composure cracked momentarily. He's poisoned you against me. Whatever he showed you. Bank records. Emails. Your own words, Mother. Cameron leaned forward. Did you think I wouldn't find out eventually? For a moment, genuine regret flickered across Allison's face. I never wanted to hurt you. You were the only good thing in that marriage. Save it, Cameron cut her off. Just tell me why you wanted this meeting. Allison glanced around nervously before sliding a USB drive across the table. Boyd doesn't know I have this. It's everything. The entire operation, everyone involved. Names, dates, accounts. I want immunity. Why turn on him now? After 20 years. Because he's cutting me loose, Allison admitted bitterly. Once Vanessa's plan failed, he transferred everything to offshore accounts I can't access. He's planning to disappear and leave me to take the fall. Cameron pocketed the drive. I'll pass this along. But I make no promises. There's something else you should know. Allison added hurriedly as he stood to leave. About your half-sister. Cameron froze. What half-sister? Boyd and I, we had a daughter. Zoe. She's 19 now. Allison's eyes pleaded for understanding. She knows nothing about any of this. She's innocent. The revelation hit Cameron like a physical blow. A sister he'd never known existed. Another secret, another lie. Where is she now? He managed to ask. Columbia University. Pre-law. A hint of genuine pride entered Allison's voice. She's brilliant, Cameron. And she doesn't deserve to suffer for our mistakes. Hours later, Cameron sat in Dominic's study. The USB drive connected to a secure computer as they reviewed its contents together. She wasn't lying about the information, Dominic observed. This fills in gaps even Vanessa's drive didn't cover. And Zoe? Cameron asked quietly. Did you know I had a half-sister? Dominic's expression softened slightly. I had suspicions. Boyd mentioned a daughter in a magazine interview years ago. The timing aligned with when Allison left. Why didn't you tell me? What purpose would it have served? Dominic asked. To know your mother had another child she chose to stay with. The truth of that assessment hung heavily between them. Cameron had spent years believing his father's driven nature had pushed his mother away. Learning she had simply traded up for a wealthier, more powerful man, and then had another child she didn't abandon, was a wound still raw. I want to meet her, Cameron said finally. Zoe. She deserves to know what's coming. Dominic studied his son for a long moment. Are you sure that's wise? No, Cameron admitted. But it's right. The next morning, as Boyd Mercer settled into his Cayman Islands mansion, believing he had escaped the consequences of his actions, Dominic initiated the next phase of his plan. First, an anonymous tip to the FBI led to raids on multiple locations associated with Boyd's enterprise, resulting in the arrest of 17 co-conspirators, including 2 judges and a police captain. The evidence provided, compiled from both Vanessa's and Allison's drives, was overwhelming. Simultaneously, the Securities and Exchange Commission froze all assets connected to Boyd's known accounts based on evidence of extensive fraud and money laundering. In the Caymans, Boyd received increasingly desperate phone calls from associates as his empire crumbled. When he attempted to withdraw funds from his supposedly secure offshore accounts, he discovered they had been emptied overnight, transferred through a complex series of transactions that would take forensic accountants months to unravel. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his private banker. "These accounts were untraceable. Someone with expert knowledge of your security protocols must have accessed them." The banker replied nervously. "The transfers were authenticated with your private keys." As Boyd's world collapsed around him, his phone rang with a call from an unknown number. "You should have taken the lesson the first time." Dominic's voice came through clearly. "Never underestimate what I'm willing to do to those who betray me." "You can't touch me here," Boyd hissed. "The Caymans won't extradite." "I don't need the legal system to handle you, Boyd." Dominic cut him off. "Though I should mention that the Royal Cayman Police Service is currently en route to your location with a warrant based on evidence of local financial crimes. It seems you've been evading Cayman tax laws as well, a serious offense locally." Through the phone, Boyd could hear sirens approaching. "This isn't over, Sawyer," he threatened. "Actually, it is," Dominic replied calmly. "Your money is gone. Your allies are being arrested or distancing themselves. Your wife has turned state's evidence against you. And your daughter. Leave Zoe out of this." Boyd's composure shattered. "Unlike you, I don't punish children for their parents' sins," Dominic said coldly. "Cameron is meeting with her now, explaining what her parents have done. She'll have a choice about her future, more than you gave my son when you stole his mother." The call ended as police pounded on Boyd's door. Within hours, he was in custody, his extradition to the United States already being negotiated based on the mountain of evidence against him. Meanwhile, in a coffee shop near Columbia University, Cameron sat across from a young woman with Allison's features, but Dominic's intense focus. Zoe Mercer, the half-sister he'd never known. "Why are you telling me all this?" she asked after listening silently to his explanation of their parents' crimes. "You could have let me find out from the news." "Because we're family," Cameron replied simply. "And family deserves the truth, even when it's ugly. Even though my parents destroyed yours." "You didn't," Cameron pointed out. "You didn't even know I existed." Zoe studied him, searching for ulterior motives and finding none. "What happens now?" "That depends on you," Cameron said. "Dad has arranged for your tuition and expenses to be covered through a blind trust. Your mother will likely make a deal to reduce her sentence. Your father, his situation is more complicated." "And what does your father want in return?" Zoe asked skeptically. "Nothing. It's not about you. It's about showing that we're nothing like them." As Cameron and Zoe talked, Dominic received confirmation that Boyd had been arrested and that Allison had formally agreed to testify against him in exchange for a reduced sentence. The SEC investigation had expanded to include 3 major financial institutions that had facilitated Boyd's fraudulent activities. Everything was proceeding according to plan. But the final act of Dominic's revenge was yet to come. The most personal reckoning still awaited Vanessa. Chapter 7. The Wife. Vanessa Sawyer had never looked more vulnerable than she did in the courtroom, dressed in a modest navy suit rather than her usual designer attire. Her attorney had advised the conservative look, an attempt to appear respectable and sympathetic to the jury. The strategy was failing miserably. From his seat in the gallery, Dominic watched impassively as Preston Taylor testified in excruciating detail about their affair and the murder plot. Preston described how Vanessa had approached him initially, how their relationship had evolved into conspiracy, and how she had coordinated with her mother to prepare the poisoned meal. She said it had to look natural, Preston testified. A heart attack that wouldn't raise suspicions. She'd already begun transferring assets to accounts only she could access. Vanessa's attorney objected repeatedly, but the damage was done. With each damning statement, the jurors' expressions hardened. During a recess, Dominic stepped into the hallway and found himself face-to-face with Vanessa for the first time since her arrest. "You set me up," she accused quietly, her attorney hovering nervously nearby. "You knew about the dinner." "I prefer to think of it as giving you enough rope," Dominic replied calmly. "You and Boyd spent years planning my demise. I simply accelerated the timeline. Boyd promised we'd be taken care of," Vanessa said bitterly. "That once you were gone, we'd have everything. And yet here you are, facing life in prison, while I'm still standing." Dominic's smile never reached his eyes. "Boyd miscalculated. Again. Is there any way to fix this?" For a moment, Desperation cracked through her composed facade. Any deal we could make? You try to murder me, Vanessa. On our anniversary. Dominic's voice remained conversational, but ice had entered his tone. There's no coming back from that. Back in the courtroom, Eleanor Hayes took the stand, her testimony even more devastating than Preston's. She described how the poisoning plan had evolved, how Vanessa had researched various toxins before settling on Digitalis for its ability to mimic heart attack symptoms. She wanted it to be untraceable, Eleanor testified, something that would be attributed to his workaholic lifestyle and stress. When Vanessa finally took the stand in her own defense, her performance might have swayed a less informed jury. She wept at appropriate moments, claimed Preston and her mother had acted without her knowledge, insisted she had loved Dominic despite their troubled marriage. I would never have harmed him, she sobbed. I just wanted our marriage to work. The prosecution's cross-examination demolished her credibility. They played recordings from Dominic's home security system, conversations between Vanessa and Preston discussing the aftermath, planning how they would explain Dominic's death, calculating how quickly they could access his assets. Most damning was a recording of Vanessa on the phone with her mother the day before the anniversary. Make sure the dose is right. We only get one chance at this. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning with guilty verdicts on all counts: conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, fraud, and a half-dozen lesser charges. Judge Mills, known for her severity in sentencing, scheduled the sentencing hearing for the following week. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Dominic. Mr. Sawyer, how do you feel about the verdict? Are you satisfied with justice being served? Will you deliver a victim impact statement at sentencing? Dominic offered only a brief comment. The justice system has done its work. I have a company to rebuild and a life to continue. That's my focus now. Later that evening, Dominic sat with Leo, Cameron, and Francis in his lake house, drinking to the verdict. To consequences, Dominic toasted, raising his glass. The trial went exactly as you predicted, Leo observed, almost as if it were choreographed. Justice has its own momentum once properly directed, Dominic replied. Cameron studied his father. This isn't the end, though, is it? You have something else planned for Vanessa. Dominic's slight smile was his only answer. The sentencing hearing brought another media circus. Judge Mills began by addressing Vanessa directly. Mrs. Sawyer, you've been convicted of attempting to murder your husband of 15 years. Not in the heat of passion, but through calculated poisoning on your anniversary. The court has received numerous character statements, including one from the victim. This was news to the gallery. Dominic had submitted no public statement. Mr. Sawyer has requested his statement be read in private, Judge Mills continued. However, he has asked that the court consider the extraordinary nature of the betrayal in determining your sentence. Vanessa turned to look at Dominic, perhaps hoping for a last-minute reprieve. His expression remained impassive. Vanessa Hayes Sawyer, for the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, this court sentences you to 25 years in state prison without possibility of parole for 15 years. Additional sentences for the lesser charges brought the total to 32 years. At 57, Vanessa would be 73 before she had any chance of release. As the courtroom began to clear, Dominic approached Vanessa before the guards led her away. I loved you once, he said quietly. Remember that during the years ahead. Is that supposed to comfort me? She asked bitterly. No, Dominic replied. It's to remind you of what you threw away. For nothing. That night, Dominic received a call from Raymond Wells. It's done, his lawyer reported. The trust fund for Zoe Mercer has been established anonymously, as requested. And the other matter, the special arrangement for Vanessa's incarceration? Is it confirmed? Yes. She'll be transferred to Bedford Hills tomorrow. Her cellmate will be Teresa Vasquez. Dominic smiled coldly. Teresa Vasquez was serving life for murdering her husband's mistress, a woman known for making the lives of husband killers particularly unpleasant. Perfect, Dominic said. And the other prisoners will know why she's there. Word has a way of spreading, Raymond confirmed. As Dominic ended the call, Cameron entered the study. I met with Zoe again, he said. She's decided to continue at Columbia, but change her name. She doesn't want her parents' crimes following her. A wise choice, Dominic nodded. And you? Have you decided about my offer? Cameron had been considering joining his father's company, something he'd resisted for years, believing the rift caused by his mother's departure was Dominic's fault. I have conditions, Cameron replied. Complete transparency. No more secrets between us, business or personal. Agreed. And I want to head the Seattle project. Redesign it from the ground up. Make it something meaningful. Dominic studied his son with newfound respect. It's yours. As they shook hands, finalization the agreement, Dominic realized that from all the destruction had come an unexpected rebuilding. The relationship with his son he'd thought forever damaged by Allison's lies. Perhaps, he reflected, revenge had given him more than just satisfaction. It had cleared away the rot of betrayal, allowing something healthier to grow in its place. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. 6 months after Vanessa's sentencing, Dominic Sawyer stood at the center of the Grand Ballroom in Chicago's Millennium Hotel, surrounded by business and civic leaders celebrating the launch of the revised Seattle project, now expanded to include affordable housing units alongside the luxury condominiums and commercial spaces. The press was calling it revolutionary urban development, praising the innovative approach Cameron had brought to the design. Dominic observed his son across the room, confidently explaining the project's sustainable features to a group of impressed investors. Pride, an emotion he rarely permitted himself, swelled momentarily. Quite the triumph, Leo commented, joining him with champagne flutes. Rising from the ashes of what could have been your destruction. Foundations matter, Dominic replied, accepting the glass. The attempts to destroy us only revealed where we needed to rebuild stronger. As the evening progressed, Dominic was approached by Judge Catherine Mills, who had sentenced Vanessa and had since retired from the bench. Mr. Sawyer, she greeted him formally. Congratulations on your company's remarkable recovery. Thank you, Judge Mills. Or I suppose it's just Catherine now. Indeed. She studied him with the same penetrating gaze that had intimidated countless defendants. I've always wondered what was in that character statement you submitted privately during Vanessa's sentencing. Just my perspectives on betrayal and justice, Dominic replied smoothly. Nothing that would have changed your ruling. Perhaps, she conceded. Though I've presided over many cases of marital treachery, Mr. Sawyer, few husbands emerge as composed as you. I processed my grief privately. Did you? Her expression suggested she understood more than she was saying. Well, in any case, justice appears to have been served. After she departed, Francis appeared at Dominic's side. Sir, there's a situation requiring your attention. In your private office. Upstairs, away from the celebrations, Dominic found Renee Hayes waiting, looking considerably improved from when he'd last seen her, the haunted expression replaced by calm determination. I apologize for interrupting your event, she began. But I thought you should know, my mother died this morning in prison. Apparent heart failure. Dominic's expression revealed nothing. I'm sorry for your loss. Are you? Renee asked without accusation. The official report says natural causes, but her cellmate mentioned she'd been having stomach problems since switching to a new medication 2 weeks ago. Prison healthcare is notoriously inadequate, Dominic observed. Yes. Renee studied him carefully, particularly when certain medications get substituted. The implication hung in the air between them. Is there something specific you wanted to discuss, Renee? Dominic asked finally. Just to understand where things stand, she replied. Vanessa has reported multiple incidents at Bedford Hills. Boyd's legal appeals have all been mysteriously denied. Allison's immunity deal was revoked due to inconsistencies in her testimony. And now my mother dies of heart failure. A rather poetic end, given the method she chose for you. The universe has its own sense of justice, Dominic said quietly. Does it? Renee didn't appear afraid, merely curious. Or does Dominic Sawyer? Is there a point to these observations? I helped you, Renee reminded him. I provided information, testified truthfully. I'm wondering if that puts me on a different list than my sister and mother. Dominic considered her for a long moment. You chose truth over family loyalty. That counts for something in my world. Enough to ensure I don't suffer a similar, cosmic justice? You have nothing to fear from me, Renee, Dominic assured her. Unless you give me reason to reconsider. After she left, Leo entered the office. Everything all right? Eleanor Hayes died in prison this morning, Dominic informed him. Heart failure. Leo's expression remained carefully neutral. Ironic. Indeed. And Renee? She suspects but can prove nothing. Dominic returned to the window overlooking the city. She made better choices than her sister and mother. She'll be fine. And Boyd. The appeal denial came through yesterday. I'm aware. Judge Walton's former clerk was very helpful in identifying which judges might have received similar consulting fees over the years. Leo studied his oldest friend. Is it finished now, Dom? Have you balanced all the scales? Almost, Dominic replied. There's one final matter to address. The following week, Dominic visited Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, his first time seeing Vanessa since her sentencing. She appeared dramatically changed after just 6 months. Thinner, her beauty faded, dark circles under her eyes. I didn't expect to see you, she said, her voice hoarse. Come to gloat. No, Dominic replied calmly. I came to deliver news personally. My mother, Vanessa nodded. They told me yesterday. My condolences. Vanessa's laugh was bitter. We both know you had something to do with it. Heart disease runs in families, Dominic observed. You might want to keep that in mind. Is that a threat? Merely an observation. Dominic placed a manila envelope on the table between them. I filed for divorce. These are the papers. Your signature is a formality as inmates cannot contest. Vanessa stared at the envelope. So this is truly the end. It ended the moment you decided my death was preferable to divorce. Dominic's voice remained even. I'm simply completing the paperwork. And what about the house? My possessions? Surely I'm entitled. You're entitled to nothing. Dominic cut her off. The prenuptial agreement you signed had a morality clause. Attempting to murder your spouse tends to violate such provisions. So I leave prison with nothing, Vanessa stated, reality finally sinking in. No money, no home, no family. You'll have exactly what you planned to leave me with, Dominic confirmed. Nothing. As he stood to leave, Vanessa grabbed his arm. Was any of it real? Us. Did you ever truly love me? For a moment, genuine emotion flickered across Dominic's carefully controlled features. I built an empire, Vanessa, but you were my home. Until you tried to poison me on our anniversary. I made a terrible mistake, she whispered. Is there no possibility of forgiveness? None, Dominic replied, removing her hand from his arm. Goodbye, Vanessa. As he walked away, he heard her call after him. They're trying to kill me in here, Dominic. Teresa and the others, they know what I did. They're making my life hell. Dominic paused, but didn't turn around. Consider it practice for the next 3 decades. Back in his car, Dominic sat for several minutes, processing the encounter. His phone buzzed with a text from Cameron. Seattle permits approved. Breaking ground next month. Life was moving forward. The company was stronger than ever, with Cameron proving himself a worthy successor. The betrayers had all faced justice, some through the legal system, others through more creative means. The revenge Dominic had methodically constructed was complete. Yet something hollow remained. Vanessa's question echoed. Was any of it real? The truth was complicated. The love had been real, at least on his side. The 15 years hadn't been entirely fraudulent. There had been moments of genuine connection, even happiness. But those memories were now tainted by the knowledge that while he was building a life, she had been planning his death. Dominic started the car, driving away from Bedford Hills for the last time. The chapter was closed. Justice, his brand of justice, had been served. The debt of betrayal had been paid in full. Chapter 9. The Aftermath. 1 year to the day after Vanessa's conviction, Dominic Sawyer stood on the observation deck of his newest completed project, the Ascension Tower in downtown Chicago. At 65 stories, it was now the tallest building he had ever constructed, its distinctive silhouette already transforming the skyline. Quite the view, Cameron commented, joining him at the railing. At 26, his son had grown into a formidable businessman in his own right, successfully launching the Seattle project while introducing innovations that had earned industry acclaim. Worth every battle, Dominic agreed, surveying the city sprawled beneath them. The past year had brought dramatic changes. With Boyd Mercer serving consecutive life sentences for his crimes, Meridian Capital had been restructured under new leadership quietly influenced by Dominic's substantial holdings. Allison, her immunity deal revoked, had accepted a 10-year sentence rather than risk trial. Preston Taylor had served 1 year of his reduced 5-year sentence before being found unresponsive in his cell, an apparent suicide, though rumors suggested his fellow inmates had tired of his constant complaints and sense of entitlement. Vanessa remained at Bedford Hills, her appeals consistently denied. Recent reports indicated she had been hospitalized twice after incidents with other inmates. Prison, it seemed, had its own justice system for those who attempted to murder their spouses. Zoe's graduation is next month, Cameron mentioned casually. She's invited us both. This was unexpected. Zoe Mercer, now Zoe Carson after legally changing her name, had maintained cautious distance from the Sawyer family despite accepting the trust fund Dominic had established for her education. Are you sure that's wise? Dominic asked. She's family, Cameron replied simply. The only sister I have. And she's nothing like her parents. Dominic considered this. I'll attend if she genuinely wants me there. She does. Cameron handed him an envelope. She wrote this for you. Inside was a handwritten note. Mr. Sawyer, for years, I was raised to believe you were the villain in my parents' story. Learning the truth has been devastating but necessary. While I cannot change their actions, I can choose a different path for myself. Your generosity toward me, despite everything my parents did to destroy you, has taught me more about integrity than all their lectures ever did. I would be honored if you would attend my graduation. Respectfully, Zoe. Dominic refolded the letter thoughtfully. I'll be there. As sunset painted the sky in dramatic oranges and purples, Leo joined them on the observation deck, champagne and glasses in hand. To new beginnings, he proposed, pouring 3 glasses. And to foundations that withstand any storm, Dominic added. The 3 men raised their glasses, the skyline of Chicago, a city Dominic had helped shape, spread before them like a kingdom. Later that evening, alone in his lake house study, Dominic opened a safe hidden behind a painting. Inside was a small recording device, the original that had captured Vanessa, Preston, and Eleanor discussing their murder plot. Beside it lay an unsigned letter he had written the night after discovering their betrayal, documenting his methodical plan for revenge. He had kept these as insurance, protection against any potential investigation into the convenient timing of his discovery. Now, with the legal battles concluded and the betrayers all suffering the consequences of their actions, these safeguards were no longer necessary. Dominic fed both items into the fire, watching as the flames consumed the final evidence of how precisely he had orchestrated each betrayer's downfall. His phone rang. Francis, with the weekly security update. Boyd Mercer was attacked in the prison yard this morning, Francis reported. Multiple stab wounds. He's in critical condition. Unfortunate. Dominic replied without inflection. Keep me informed. There's more, Francis continued. Eleanor Hayes's autopsy report was finally released. The medical examiner found elevated levels of digitalis in her system. Not enough to definitively rule it homicide, but enough to raise questions. Ironic, Dominic observed. Anything else? Vanessa has requested another transfer, claiming ongoing threats to her safety. Denied again. I see. Thank you, Francis. After ending the call, Dominic poured himself a bourbon and stepped onto the deck overlooking the lake. The full moon cast a silver path across the dark water, reminding him of another night 15 years earlier when he had proposed to Vanessa on this very spot. My mother-in-law prepared a special anniversary dinner for me and sent it with a caring note. Happy anniversary. Enjoy this gourmet meal I made just for you, he recited to the empty night. 3 days later, she called and asked, Did you eat the dinner? I laughed and said, Your daughter came home early and ate it all. The next thing I heard was her screaming through the phone. The memory, now transformed from betrayal to victory, brought a cold smile to his lips. A text notification illuminated his phone. Boyd Mercer had died of his injuries. The last architect of the conspiracy against him was gone. Dominic raised his glass to the moon. To consequences, he toasted silently. The foundation of his life had been tested by betrayal, and those who had tried to destroy him had instead been destroyed themselves. Where others might have sought closure through forgiveness, Dominic had chosen a different path, one paved with the calculated ruins of those who had underestimated him. Some men forgave betrayal. Dominic Sawyer ensured it was never forgotten. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.